Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to Hispanic Speak Out TV, bringing you community perspectives. This is Danny Ramos and Jose Miranda, and we're launching an interesting concept that we're going to try as a test. We will be on Facebook every single day at 5 p.m. bringing you an update of what we think in dialogue, in commentary, is something that you should hear about. And we'll be broadcasting that on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram every single day, Monday through Friday. So it's going to be the Ramos and Miranda news broadcast at 5 p.m. every day through Facebook. We are also going to use this broadcast to go to Spectrum Cable, and we will be on channel 194 every Tuesday with the same concept. Except that on Facebook, we'll be doing it daily. On Spectrum, it'll be Tuesday night at 9:30. So, Jose, what are we going to talk about? Naturally, we're going to talk about the Floyd situation, the George Floyd situation. Okay, so we're Hispanic. Hispanics have a little bit of black. We got a little bit of sensitivity because of our families and that are involved as minority community. What's your take? How do you want to start?
Well, right now, a lot of the issue is Black Lives Matter. However, it's more than just George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. It's more about the culmination of how we got here. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, what I'm looking at is something that's happened repeatedly by the police department over 10 years. Right. This is not an isolated incident. You mentioned to me that what made this unusual was that a 17-year-old girl actually videotaped it as it was happening. She videotaped the killing. Right. Now,
even more so, okay. In 1981, during the Vietnam War, February 1st, a reporter took a picture of a Vietnamese general assassinating, basically.
Executing
a handcuffed prisoner. And the picture went viral. And most people, a lot of people, say that was the catalyst to the beginning of the uprising against the war, okay, or the marches and stuff like this. That was a picture in time that caught everybody, and you'll see it here, the photograph. But this is the same concept. This young 17-year-old caught the picture at the right time, at the right moment, of a person being murdered, okay, and that is what the catalyst took off. Because everything has been a powder keg for years, and this was the final match to start everything off.
Yeah, I did a Facebook a post saying that we were in a situation waiting for that match, and George Floyd was the match on the powder keg that blew up. The question is, a lot of people are saying enough is enough. That it doesn't matter that George Floyd was a convicted felon. He had a criminal history. What mattered is just that moment in time.
That's the way he was killed. That
he was killed inappropriately by a police officer, which did not have to happen.
Right.
Because he had 4 police officers with him to back him up, and he chose to use that method to hold him down.
Plus he was handcuffed.
Plus he was handcuffed, so he couldn't go anywhere.
He was subdued already.
Yeah.
As soon as you put cuffs on somebody, it's a dead issue.
Yeah. So it is police brutality. There's no question about it. It is at least a second-degree murder. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because premeditated murder means the officer woke up that morning and said he was going to kill George.
Okay.
He didn't.
So you need premeditation to be first degree.
Yeah.
So could it be premeditated during that 9-minute process? Do you think that he knew what he was doing? Is that possible? In other words, if we were sitting at a jury and the prosecutor was saying, is that possible that within that 9-minute he decided to use excessive force to the point of killing the guy? It's possible, but it's not.
The other thing is, the guy developed brain freeze. You're caught up in the moment and you forget about it.
When you say the guy, who are you talking about?
The police officer. Caught up in the moment. You can, when an incident happens and as a police officer and you're involved in it, time freezes for you. And most officers would admit to that. Time freezes. Everything is in slow motion when it happens. And it almost seems as though it's happening to somebody else. I'm not saying that's what he was thinking. I'm saying that's a possibility, not an excuse, but he just zoned out, and the other officers around him did not aid him, but they were all subordinate to the officer.
That's one of the defendants. There was a police officer, a rookie.
Yeah, 3 days on the job.
He's only 3 days on the job, and he's being charged with second-degree murder or third-degree murder, and his job is just to observe. He's not supposed to do anything as a rookie.
But he's aiding and abetting.
I don't know if that's going to hold up in court. I think that he's going to get off. You know, what is he supposed to do? Tackle his supervisor?
It's the same.
You know,
if somebody gives you an order that is blatantly wrong, you're obligated not to follow it.
Yeah, but if you're mature within the environment,
Right.
in other words, here's a cop who's been only on duty for 3 days.
Right.
He's not mature in the process. He's overwhelmed technically that within that 3-day period he's getting involved in something like this. So, and he's been told to stand by. He's not told to be active.
Right.
You know, not that he knows what to do because he's in training.
Right.
So, you know, from my point of view, you know, there is a morality question.
Yeah, definitely.
There is an ethical question that young officer should have enacted. Maybe he should have voiced, you know, but then he would have, if Floyd would not have died, if he would have been arrested, and that officer was telling him to get off to his boss, he could have been thrown off the force. He could have been reprimanded for not following orders if Floyd didn't die.
But he had
So
a
it's a
moral-
two-edged sword. He had an moral obligation.
Obligation to
So-
take life and limb. That's his job.
So we're looking at some gray matter here. We're not looking at gray matter that Floyd was definitely killed. He was definitely killed by the actions of a police officer. There is no dispute on that. The fact that Floyd was convicted of whatever crimes he was convicted of, and it has nothing to do.
Which is being touted out.
Yeah, but
about
that-
certain people that were idolizing George, and that's not the issue. The issue is not that we're idolizing George. The issue is the manner in which he was killed and the blatant, the way it was done was horrendous.
Well, for political purposes, there is a lot of creating an image of George Floyd. I saw him I saw a painting with angel wings on him, with a thing over his head. You know, and I saw a painting done that was actually 2 on each side, and I think it was in a church. But you know, to me that's going too far. The reality is the man was murdered. Okay, he did have a past which has nothing to do with the way he was killed. Those are 2 separate incidences. Okay.
And the movement now has taken turns way beyond George, okay? Because now we have a movement within movements, and we talked about that too. How the police lost control of it from day one.
Yeah, I want you to. Yeah, I think that you had, you know, we had discussed this previously, and you brought up the idea that they never, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm saying it out of context, that they never should have let the precinct abandon the precinct.
No. There's a.
But by the way, I want everybody to know that he is a former New York City police officer, retired. So he has faced on the street 20 years of policing in the biggest and most difficult city in the world to police. So his views are valid from the point of view of how a police officer feels in various situations.
What I'm saying, in 1967, for example, during I think it's the Watts riots, tactically speaking, the police officers then, the conclusion was that if you gave up the street, the first block, if you gave it up to protesters, then you would play catch up for the remainder of the time, which they did. It burned for days, and the same thing happened in this instance. Once they got onto the precinct level, and they abandoned the precinct, the mayor told the officers to leave that location, and that basically just opened the doors wide open.
It emboldened them.
Yeah, emboldened.
And then you had the introduction, you had protesters who were nonviolent, and then you had people to take advantage.
Right, there were people within the people.
Yeah, and they took advantage. There were people of a negative background who didn't think anything about breaking windows and stealing TV sets and doing that. They took total advantage of what happened and caused the fires and caused the looting.
And it was clearly, you could clearly see the separation from the peaceful to the the crowd that was there for other reasons. And it was a mixed crowd. The white people, there were pictures of white people breaking glasses and stuff like that. And you saw a lot of protesters, non-African American, that were participating in this. And they lost control of it, or they allowed themselves to be disorganized.
Yeah. Now, defunding. Out of this has risen the concept of defunding the police departments throughout the country. I mean, Minneapolis City Council voted to defund the police department and turn it over to community policing, which I think is absolute. I mean, part of it I can understand, where you can have community involvement in policing on the street. But what do you think?
Well, the Attorney General of the United States, William Barr, has said that to take away policing would mean vigilantism, and it's not going to work. As we've spoken about off the air, this policing is very complicated. You're not going to pick up the phone and dial a thug, for example, excuse the pun, but who are you going to call? 911. You're going to call the thug and have him come help you. We're talking about organized crime, we're talking about prostitution, we're talking about drugs. All these elements didn't go away simply because we have the virus or for the protest. All these people still exist, and trust me, they are taking advantage of the situation.
I mean, I would think that organized crime is loving this.
Yes, of course.
Because for community policing, they're going to get, who's going to face off with organized crime or gangs? Like these organized gangs that go out and shoot people indiscriminately if it's not armed police.
If you think about it, okay, if you took away the word police, we hire our own gang and we put the name police on them, okay, and they patrol the streets for us. So we are hiring vigilantes, but they're called police, and they're trained to do certain things a certain way. What we're talking about in defunding, I believe right now is the enthusiasm of the moment, the sorrow you're feeling, but basically this is, we want to change.
Yeah, I think it's an expression of change, and it's expression. Omar, who is the congressional representative for that district, has come out and said we don't want police at all. She says eliminate the entire police department.
Well, we also know that she's a little bit on the
extremist side.
Extremist side.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but,
you can't take. I understand she has a viewpoint.
Yeah.
They all have viewpoints, but the reality is, they're not going to take care of domestic issues. Professionals have to do that. Okay, you're not going to call a social worker, okay, to come in and break up the domestic violence when the guy is beating the crap out of you.
And he has a gun.
And he has a gun.
Which happened in Altamont Springs, I believe today. Here in Florida, where there was a shootout between police, between a guy and who had been involved in a domestic violence situation, and he shot first. So what do you do with your community guy?
You call up the social worker to come in and step out in there between the bullet
and
the domestic.
Yeah, we're running out of time. As I close off, today Joe Biden came out and said we do not want to defund police departments or eliminate police departments. Okay, Joe Biden said that today, and so did Donald Trump. So at least they're talking about the same thing, maybe at different levels, but we'll talk about that during the next broadcast. This is Danny Ramos and Jose Miranda on the Ramos Miranda Report, which is going to be every single day on YouTube. So we will be back. Join the experiment.